Alright, we just got done watching Young Sheldon. Obviously, we're on the first season. That's all that's aired so far. Episode 4, a therapist, a comic book, and a breakfast sausage. And we're currently listening to, and I'm myself am on roughly my 5th or 6th listen of Come Over When You're Sober, Part 1, by the late and brilliant Lil Peep. God rest his soul, for real.
Peep.
You know, as much as I like to tinge with irony, I don't think there's anything funny about that at all. I think this guy was ahead of his time, and I think always will be ahead of his time now. And I'm going to pour some up.
I think Lil Peep is one of those artists that it's unfortunate that he was the one that ended up passing away, but I think
Hopefully he goes down a martyr.
And here's the thing, I hope Lil Peep's, and I see it already. I see Lil Peep's death. He has not died in vain. There's been many artists who have taken pauses saying, hey, I need to sober up, I need to be careful. Yeah. And I think it's really unfortunate Lil Peep happened to be the one, but Lil Peep...
Considering how young he was, too.
Lil Peep is going to save...
Barely 21.
Save our generation.
Much like Young Sheldon is going to save our generation and help create...
Two people who are very young,
yes,
but also very...
Martyrs in a lot of ways.
Very ahead of their game. Very ahead, leading, and...
So
taking their generation to the next level.
Yeah. This is a great song, too. The song's called Save That Shit. It's a great song. It's got a very, very catchy hook.
Very good music video.
I like the way that Lil Peep sort of created in some ways, very, very polarizing, but also more accessible translation through the eyes of the current generation, of the last generation's sort of, pop emo music, being the Good Charlottes, the Panic at the Discos, the Fall Out Boys, the Breaking Benjamins, the Minerals of the late 90s, early 2000s. But he made something I think personally is catchier, more emotionally forthright, and more relatable and interesting, frankly, and experimental and forward thinking, much like Young Sheldon. So this episode opens.
Writer on Pitchfork.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, this episode, a therapist, a comic book, and a sausage, or whatever it's called. This episode opens with Sheldon having a sort of a near-death moment while eating breakfast.
He's choking on a Jimmy Dean sausage, and his sister is excited that he's going to die because she'll get a full room, because Sheldon and his sister share a room. So if Sheldon doesn't survive this incident, she'll get a full room.
You ever share a room with a sibling?
I haven't. Have you?
Yeah.
How was that?
My brother didn't like it, but I did. I like sharing a room. I don't like being alone.
It's tough.
Much. Being said, that's why I'm Sheldon and my brother is Sheldon's sister. Type. Yeah, for sure. So they, he gets it together, but he ends up sort of being traumatized by solid food. And they make certain efforts to try and subvert that. His mom does, at least, and she gets criticized by George Sr. for coddling him.
She's catering to it. She's blending all his food, and Sheldon refuses to eat any solid food.
But the difference between Sheldon's mom and everybody else's response to Sheldon, other than his Vietnamese friend and Mima.
Mima's back in this one. I'm hoping Mima's
Mima just gets it.
Fingers crossed, Mima's a series regular.
I hope so.
She's the best character so far.
Oh yeah, and just outacts Annie Potts
is
the actress, and she's just incredibly charismatic and seems to just have sort of a fun-loving, understanding attitude towards the whole thing.
Genuinely, outside of a review, I would say Mima is the best character in the whole thing, and almost doesn't feel like as much that she's acting. But it's more just like taking the script and like, okay, yeah, I'll just do it. You know what I mean?
She's having fun with it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's
TV work's good work too. It's good money.
Doesn't feel like it's just a paycheck.
Yeah,
which is nice because some of the actors on there, especially some of the younger ones, seems like they're just really looking forward to the paycheck.
Or to the future career that comes out of being on Young Sheldon for the 15 years that this is obviously
Young Sheldon's younger sister.
Yeah.
Good actress, but I can just tell that she's
the next Drew Barrymore.
She's in it for the money. Oh, you can tell. She's like. If she doesn't get that raise, she's going to drop this
We've
show.
Moved on from the pink wine. We're onto the white wine now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mima.
Good advice. What do you think, Mima? Mima actually in this episode. So while they're eating dinner in this episode, you see Mima with a little cocktail shaker.
Oh, this is a good scene. This is a little good.
Yeah, this is a good little
subtle.
moment. She has her own little cocktail shaker. You know, she's probably got 2 servings of her beverage in there, and she's shaking up, and she's kind of upping her dosage.
She's pouring into her orange juice.
Whatever, like sort of like cocktailed screwdriver. She's probably got some vermouth in there, knowing her age. And
oh yeah,
the time that takes place.
And you can tell that like that's a little subtle joke, just like that Pixar thing.
Yeah,
they're slipping that in for us older viewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Young kids won't know what that is, but we know it. Meanwhile, packing her own stuff.
Yeah. And I thought that was very funny.
So one
and also Dad, I noticed Dad drinks. I can't remember exactly what it was. I want to say Lone Star was the name of the. I think that's the brand of smokes. I think that was the brand of beer, which, as far as I recall, is also what Russ Cole, Matthew McConaughey, requests when he's being interviewed in the older portion of True Detective.
It's a very interesting little subtle nod, a little Easter egg.
Yeah, perhaps.
A little Easter egg for the mature viewers,
yeah.
you know.
Well, it's just a characterization. You know, if you understand that brand of beer, you understand. The reason I understand is because I'm a big fan of HBO's True Detective.
And exactly, I think Chuck Lorre, who's brilliant writer, had that in mind as a little like Easter egg.
And I think he's got a True Detective in him. So,
yeah, exactly.
You know, I don't think he's reached that kind of high, but he's certainly reached highs of True Detective, but not that kind of.
Well, I think
artistic magnum opus. This might be it, though. We'll see.
I think he hasn't had a single series that has reached that. But when you add together all these individual series,
he's leaps and bounds beyond.
Surpass it,
sure.
because True Detective is one series.
Well, it's a career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just a show; it's a career.
So,
one thing I do want to say though is probably the funniest joke in this whole episode was when young Sheldon was being held upside down to cough out the sausage he was choking on. He saw a box of Count Chocula.
Yeah.
And he was thinking to himself, like, oh, when most people say that they're dying, they see their life flash before their eyes.
Yeah.
And what young Sheldon was thinking about, he's like, why is he called Count Chocula? Is the Count a figurative title, or did it come to land? And I think that's...
The writing is actually pretty good in this show. Like, the show, like you know, breaking a little bit, but, like, you know, the show is pretty appealing to, you know, a pretty general audience.
With those subtle jokes that just completely dip your foot right below the surface.
Yeah.
And then you know that this isn't just some basic
in a desire to really appeal to the Sheldon characters, you know, like hyper intellectualism. I can't emphasize the 3 hypers.
There's a lot more of human here. And young Sheldon, he won't eat any solid food anymore. And as we talked
and that's
before,
logical, but it's also neurotic.
His mother, Mary, she was like catering to this. So they took him to a therapist, and during his time there, while his therapist was talking to his parents, young Sheldon read an X-Men comic.
They had this like in a way to appeal, and his therapist was this very. You know, it's funny. I mentioned Matthew McConaughey. This
Matthew McConaughey type.
Yeah, well,
like
and he was much more maybe of a perhaps a beta male archetype than
characterized version of him, and as a sense to say, okay, what if we take Matthew McConaughey, True Detective?
When this guy just said right on a lot, right on, and you know George Senior is kind of like okay,
He's
yeah,
like,
we get it.
Okay.
And this guy's kind of the suave. Like this guy's from Austin. These guys are not from Austin, Texas. These the Sheldon family is from God knows not Austin,
Texas, but not Austin.
Yeah,
we know
this is an Austin guy. This kind of like right on, cool cat kind of thing, dazed and confused type of thing. And I thought that was actually like moderately funny.
And
I definitely had a chuckle.
Young Sheldon, he ends up reading this X-Men comic, and he runs away. He leaves the therapist's office. His parents are freaked out, calling the cops. They're worried.
Yeah.
And we cut to young Sheldon meeting his Vietnamese friends. And
at the comic book
King
shop. He walks out and finds
King Kong comic
books, and he's looking for the X-Men.
And he asks,
I believe is a callback to Big Bang Theory. I believe that I recall watching Big Bang Theory, and you see Sheldon often hanging around comic book shops.
I believe
and
in
discussing
an episode or two,
discussing like multiverse kind of stuff.
Very subtly. I don't think comic books were a very prevalent thing, but I believe
not specifically for Sheldon.
I believe in an episode or two. You might have had a little subtle relationship to the comic.
What I wanted to say was that Sheldon's sitting in the therapist's office and discovering the X-Men comics and helping him sort of understand.
And he says he must be a mutant.
He must be, and I think this is the kind of response a lot of younger people have when they listen to Little Peep. Is that they hear this and they understand that maybe it's okay to be different, and to be open about your influences
and your feelings. And obviously, as we look at the music realm, Lil Peep is very different from a lot of artists who have been prevalent right now.
And who have kind of exist in the same world, in that he takes these trap influences and these emo influences and meshes them together, and then he finds himself, his niche that a lot of people who don't have any artists to look up to or to relate to or to express what they feel, Little Peep fills that void the way that X-Men as a piece of art at the very least, or a piece of popular culture, mutants, the X-Men being mutants, that's something that these sort of hyper intellectual but naturally antisocial young people can find it, where they go, okay, well I guess you can be amazing, but you obviously have fatal flaws, and you have to work within those fatal flaws. However, in this episode, his fatal flaw is that he
can't chew.
And in that sense, to relate to Lil Peep, is people can listen to Lil Peep music and say, okay, I understand this. I understand what he's saying. I understand the harshness and the depression coming from this. I'm Lil Peep. I'm the same person as that. And young Sheldon gets that to mutants, where he says, I'm a mutant. I must be, because he finally finds something he relates to. So he goes to King Kong Comic Shop.
But Sheldon is also smart enough to understand that this is fiction, but even him at his level of sort of
superior intellect.
Yeah, superior intellect, where he doesn't just doubt God, he outwardly denounces God. But he's still willing to submit to sort of the fairy tale lore of the X-Men.
He denounces God, not just denounces him with logic and reason, which I completely get behind.
Cheers.
But then, along with that, he can say, okay, I understand the X-Men, I understand these stories, these fictitious stories that explain who I am as a person in this weird thing we call life.
Yeah. And I actually think that was, like, as we were discussing kind of the sort of return to status quo at the end of the Faith episode, being the last episode. Whereas with this one, I think that you're going to see a thread of change through this interest in sort of nerd culture in an era where, now, like as we said, Big Bang Theory is actually weird. This is an interesting point. I just came across this in my own mind here. But Lil Peep actually has a similar narrative in how people responded to him upon his unfortunate passing away. Where Big Bang Theory is indirectly or even directly responsible for helping this sort of shift in the last 10 years.
Oh,
roughly,
completely, yes.
Nerds are the new hipster.
Well,
Nerds,
exactly.
nerds are the new grunge. Nerds are the new
cool.
Right?
Post Big Bang Theory, people are wearing their real D glasses to school.
Yeah, you're seeing ideas like
Tumblr,
board game cafes with 3-hour-long wait lists.
Well, exactly. Like you see all those girls
EB
on Tumblr.
Games, you got these lines out the door.
Tumblr girls with their nerd glasses.
Yeah,
they're now attractive. When prior,
and they are, and they always were. But
they always were. But people wouldn't accept that as the truth.
Yeah.
Prior to the Big Bang Theory,
and much like you hear Lil Peep, you hear this music here, and you go, oh, emo voice, whatever. But then you take a step back and you think about the culture at large, and you really listen to what he has to say in the production, and sort of where these influences are coming from. And you understand that you have something that is helping to make the world a more open and inclusive place, and to shift the tide of culture where the underlings are the toplings, and the toplings are perhaps becoming closer to maybe the middle or the under. And I think that's beautiful.
And the thing that young Sheldon is doing, while the Big Bang Theory brought nerd culture to the forefront and said, hey, okay, this is okay, nerd culture has kind of fallen a little bit. And young Sheldon's job is to come up with a backstory and say, okay, here's why it's okay, to kind of justify that and to bring it back up to the forefront, which is something that Lil Peep's music, not Lil Pump. Lil Pump, different story, different guy.
That's for a whole other...
Lil Pump is for a completely different video.
Yeah.
Lil Peep, however, brought things right back up to the beginning.
Yeah. When Lil Pump isn't much of an outcast, whereas Lil Peep is an outcast, young Sheldon is an outcast, and by committing to being yourself at the purest form, but also being willing to change. And in Lil Peep's career, despite his unfortunate death due to an overdose, I found throughout his short career, he was becoming much less of a sort of goon, drugged out archetype, and much more of a sort of charming creative type, and much more of a relatable person, and less of a sort of drugged out freak. Yeah, it's very tragic. I'd like to say rest in peace, Lil Peep. Yeah.
That. And then in the end, young Sheldon uses the red vine, chews it up, and turns into a comic book character on screen.
Yeah, you see the art that they did there.
They did an amazing art, and that's episode 4.
This was a good episode. Last episode was better, but I really the Mima stuff is great.
I think
And
Mima is
this
carrying
record,
it.
this Lil Peep record too, is really good. I'd also recommend his mixtape Hellboy, which I think is superior work. But I think this hammers home his unique genre. Hellboy relies more on sort of trap influence, but it is. I think it is a superior record. But Come Over When You're Sober Part 1 is really, really.
When's Part 2 coming out? Posthumous.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we just get everything this kid ever did because he had hell of a lot of good ideas. Cheers.